Perfect.
Would you like to support the Insiders? Pick up some merch now. Support us by getting a shirt, a hoodie, support Abby's window, get a Shenanigans shirt, whatever you'd like. Pick up some merch now. Insiders Pro Wrestling. The link is at the end of the video.
Sunday and welcome to a very special Inside the Ropes, Between the Ropes, Inside, God, I still want to say that, Between the Ropes, right in front of my face. It's not like I can't read. Show. You can tell I'm a little rusty. It's been a while. We haven't been here in a little bit, but it's a very special show this week. And, I kind of thought it'd be a good idea. And, of course, Jeff and I talked about this. And it'd be a good idea just to, Jeff and I sat down with, along with Jody, and we sat down with Dom, and we did these really kind of interesting interviews on his channel. And I thought it was kind of cool. While he went into more of stuff about our lives, I just thought that it might be a fun thing to do. To just kind of almost like Jeff and I would be kind of interviewing each other a little bit. And you guys get the benefit of finding out maybe some things that you just never knew about both of us. And mostly it's because I wanted to bring, as we're coming back here, we've been gone for a little bit. And as we're coming back to kind of reinvigorate us a little bit, maybe get us back into a little bit of the things that we remembered that we had fun doing. Not that we're not, but I just think that, wrestling in itself is getting a little bit, it's getting a little bit negative. There's a lot of negativity rolling around in it. Yeah. Yeah, it is. It really is. And you guys see it too, out there constantly. It just seems like there's really just not a whole lot of positives with it anymore. So I think just maybe taking this little trip back and looking back at why we did things, why we started this whole thing and stuff like that. I can just kind of reinvigorate us a little bit. And hopefully you guys will have some fun too. Maybe, like I said, find some stuff out about us. Maybe you didn't really know. And as to why we enjoy doing this show. So Jeff, it should be fun. Again, we're not going to, no format tonight. This is unscripted. We usually do, Jeff does a script for this show when we do it, and there's no script to this. So we're kind of off the cuff here. No script tonight. We're just going to go as the wind takes us, so to speak, Jeff. But I don't know. I think it's going to be fun. And again, I'm not going to stick around really long tonight, guys. I know there's people that are watching basketball playoffs. There's people that are watching. I really don't care because I'm pretty much confined to the fact that my Celtics are going to lose and they're going to be done. But I know there's people watching other stuff and doing other things tonight. So we're not going to keep you very long. And Jeff's got a lot of work things going on where he's got to be in work early in the morning. So we're not going to stick around until 11 like we usually do. We're not going to go over news or anything like that. It's just going to be freestyling, yes, and that's essentially what it's going to be. Just something we've never really kind of done before. We've had Ask the Insiders and things like that, but that was always kind of directed by you. And this is going to be just kind of a little bit different. So Jeff, it should be fun, I think.
Yeah, and I will say this: I would like near the end like to open it up to some questions from the chat.
We could certainly do that. Yeah, we'll save the last 10-15 minutes.
Yeah.
Absolutely, we could do that.
Yeah,
this little mini Ask the Insiders. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this will be a lot of fun. We started this thing out, and it's hard to believe it's been over 3 years at this point.
It really has.
But we started this thing out a while back, and wrestling. I will even say in the 3 years that we've been doing this, wrestling has changed quite a bit. Just from, well, we'll probably get into some of that, but I just feel like sometimes it's good to hit a reset.
Yes.
So I was happy when we talked about this idea. It's a look into us.
Yes.
A little bit more. And I think sometimes I think people know us, but there may be some things that they don't know. Maybe you're a newcomer and you this is your first time really watching us. We want to share why we do what we do and why we love wrestling so much. So
yes, absolutely. A couple of things we do want to mention. We have two prominent figures, one of wrestling, one of just the black sports community altogether. And first, obviously, this man, I remember seeing this guy wrestle when I was young. And he really, when people talked about superstar Billy Graham, he kind of did really pave the way for the wrestlers of today. And then, a lot of people are saying he was the guy who brought the entertainment to the wrestling business. And he really was such a big, like a big figure, not just muscular, but, the way he presented himself and his name, Superstar Billy Graham. And again, I remember watching him on television, younger fan of wrestling, early 80s and stuff. And he always just commanded attention. When he was on that microphone, he was one of the best. And what an awesome in-ring performer. And even when he got older, he was still that same just big personality, that larger than life personality that we see a lot in wrestling today. And listen, they wouldn't have been there. Guys came on, they were talking about him a little bit. I saw on SmackDown, and, Hulk Hogan came out and said he wouldn't be who he was without him. And that's very true, because Hogan, you could see where he took things from Superstar Billy Graham and ran with it. And so a very prominent figure in what wrestling became today. And Jeff, without this guy, man, the wrestling we know wouldn't be what it is today.
Yeah. I mean, you want to talk about a body guy, especially at the time that he broke in.
Yes.
I mean, there were other guys that were well put together, but this dude just looked like a comic book hero.
Yeah, he did.
So yeah, honestly, seeing so many of the names that were around when I was younger, seeing them pass away now, it just lets you know that time is so precious.
It is.
That's why it's so important to enjoy people while we have them,
right.
Whether that's people that entertain us, family, friends, It's just so important to really appreciate the people that we have, because one day we won't. And yeah, this. He was tremendous though, man. He really was, and really paved the way for guys like Hulk Hogan and Lex Luger and other guys. So yeah, I mean, he was. If you haven't seen a lot of him, YouTube is your friend,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's worth checking out some of his
Yep.
stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And I can see a lot of you in the chat are saying, and I'll say hello really quickly. RK Shuttlesworth, James, Big Dan, Alicia's here. We've got Sean Rousset, John G. We've got, trying to work up the list. Tazzy is in the house. What's up, Tazzy? Anthony Slade, of course, is here, who is a member of our channel. Thank you, Anthony, for being a member, and thank you for being here.
And I got to play this for Tazzy real quick since he's in the
Yes.
field.
There it is.
There you go.
We've got Brandon is here as well. So welcome all of you that came out. But yeah, man, this guy, an absolute legend of the business. And again, like I said, would not be the same without him. Would not have been a Nature Boy, Triple H, Hulk Hogan. Yeah, they were all took inspiration from superstar Billy Graham. No doubt. And then the other one, of course, if you're a football fan, you can say this man is the all-time best running back ever to play the game. And not too many people could argue with you. And a prominent, just a legend in football. And then he went on to be, a rights activist. He a lot of public speaking that he did, and on many different levels. This man was just an amazing figure, and an amazing person to listen to. I listened to a few of his, and watched a couple of them on YouTube, and listened to a few of his speeches. A lot of people, he turned some people off. He was a little bit controversial in a way as well. But the one thing that he struck me as being, and again, I was very young when he was playing football. So I didn't really, I've never seen him other than the highlights, of course. But a polarizing figure to an effect. But if you ever listen to him speak, extremely intelligent, and really believed in the things that he stood for. Great actor. Yeah, he was in some movies as well. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Jim Brown, an absolute football legend who really led to, and even for his time back then, running backs were on the smallish side. He kind of led to them being him coming in kind of led to guys like Franco Harris from the Steelers, those bigger backs who were able to be quick, but also able to just knock the hell out of people. And I think that I would equate that to Jim Brown's being there and kind of leading to that, Jeff.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, football player wise, the man is legendary. Obviously, he played before my time, but
yes,
my grandfather absolutely loved Jim Brown.
Yep.
Loved him. And what's crazy is he set the yards that he did in only 9 seasons.
Yep.
And they were only playing 10 and 12 games back then.
Yep.
And now you've got 17, and so I mean, the guy was a legend on the field. But for me, and I know for many people, Jim Brown transcended sport.
Yeah, he did.
He was. I'll talk about the like he was a great actor. By the way, his role in Any Given Sunday as the coach, like I would have run through a brick wall for that man. Because that role in Any Given Sunday, and shout out to Dr. Jamie Williams, who's one of my mentors and was actually in the film and helped write the film. So shout out to him. He's a former Nebraska Cornhusker tight end. So shout out to him. But yeah, it's is crazy, because what he did as an activist, at the time that he did it, not only was it dangerous,
Yes.
but it could have been a career killer, not just from an NFL standpoint, but from acting roles and different things. I mean, it could have been a career killer, but because he was who he was, you just couldn't help but appreciate the man. Um, I'll say this too, and Derek sent me this. Derek Fleming sent me the article that ESPN did. The I'm gonna try to be calm here, but the article that ESPN wrote was so disrespectful. I mean, so disrespectful,
Mm.
because they brought up some things that he had been through personally, and I get that that was a part of his journey, but that wasn't who he was. And the man just passed,
Right. Yeah.
so be respectful. And it goes back to the mentality of journalists and journalism and media companies these days. It's all about clicks. It's all about trying to get the most clicks and drive people to your website. And, I mean, this man just passed away. He's got friends that are mourning. He's got fans that are mourning. He's got family that's more. I mean, just wait a few days if you got to run a story like that. If you're gonna eulogize the man, do it in a respectful manner. Thank you, James Chadwick, um,
The translator.
the translator. But yeah, it's really enough about them and the negativity. I'll just say that I'm I'm happy that as a kid I was able to go back and watch stuff
Right.
of his, and really learn about him, not only as a football player, but as a man and an activist, and many of the other things that he did in his life. So, yeah, this one, when I saw the news come through on this, it hit pretty hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I totally can understand that. And again, like I said, he was. Dan mentioned the thing about how he didn't like people breaking his records, and listen, that's okay. Like Jeff just explained, the guy had all those records playing with 6 less games. So when he was coming out and speaking about that, he was saying, "Well, yeah, that's great and all, but I did what I did in 10 games, 10-game seasons." So I think that what it was is, sometimes when you move on in sports, right, and the athletes that played prior and things like that, sometimes people just, they push them aside and be like, well, this guy is just way better, and trying to compare the two. But you really have to give credit to the people who played during the times when football so much has changed so much. The offense. So they score up and down the field now constantly. You don't see any more games that are 10-7 or 16-10. It's always 40-30 or 30.
Shoot, not 9-3 and
Yeah.
6-3. I mean,
Right.
I remember those days when we would get defensive struggles like that.
Yes. Yeah. And he really did all this stuff in those kind of days when the fields were a mess and disgusting, like you're running in mud pits and dirt and rocks. It wasn't all this ash, the turf and this, it was very, very different. And like Jeff said, if you want to learn about it, if you're a football fan, go and just search out videos of him, and you'll see what a impressive man and player he was, and you'll learn a few things. If you're a football fan, go check it out.
2 things I gotta add. With football, the other thing that you have to remember is the game was a lot meaner back then.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't as soft as it's gotten, and soft maybe not the correct word because the intent behind what they've done with the rules is for the right reasons, but sometimes it's just a little too far. It's like, okay, we are playing football, we're not playing tag.
Right.
Just because glared in Tom Brady's general direction doesn't mean that he gets to automatically have a roughing the passer penalty, thrown
Yes.
on defense.
Yep.
Um, so the game was a lot rougher back then. And if you really want to see how much the game has changed, go look up a guy if you've never heard of him named Deacon Jones.
Oh, geez. Yeah. Yeah.
Go look up Deacon Jones and see what he would do to offensive linemen. Deacon Jones was a mean man on the football field, and he was coming to get the quarterback. So
Yep.
just think of how many more sacks he would have had in his career had they been counting sacks as a statistic when he first started. So yeah, just go take a look at how the game used to look. Even you can even go back to the 80s and 90s. Go look at Ronnie Lott, Steve Atwater.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys wouldn't be able to play in the league today.
Very true.
So anyway,
Yep.
enough
Yep.
about that. Enough about that part. But the last thing I wanted to add with Jim Brown is he was also a great lacrosse player at Syracuse
Mm-hmm.
University. So outstanding lacrosse player, and actually paved the way for a lot of people of color to play lacrosse. So that's another aspect of his life that I wanted to share.
There you go. There you go. Multi-talented, and sometimes we, like I said, it was just a generational man, generational player, human being overall. So again, we lost two legends this past week. So where have we been? Well, listen, things happen sometimes.
Yeah.
Look, we've missed you too. There's no doubt, and so life happens. Unfortunately, again, we've said this over and over again, and I guess this is a good place as any to start. We've said this over and over again. We would love to be full-time streamers. We would absolutely love that. Sometimes it's just not always possible. We don't, we're not career. We'd love to do it, but listen. You've got to make money in order to do it. That's the sad part about it. And unfortunately, hopefully, man, you never know. We may get there someday, but right now we're not, and that's not a possibility. And so life happens. The jobs take precedence. Jeff's job has a lot of overwhelming things going on, and he's got to be there and he's got to do that because that's got to come first. And so yeah. But we missed all of you too. It's we love doing this, and that's what we're going to get into. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to get things kicked off a little bit, and we're going to start now. If you don't know our history really quickly, so Jeff and I met during COVID in someone else's stream. We won't mention, but look. It is what it is. We met in a wrestling stream. That's how we got to know one another. And Jeff invited me on a podcast of his, and that's how we got to talking and just realized we had a lot in common. And one of the things was wrestling. So we're like, you know what? Everybody's stuck inside. Why not just do a wrestling podcast? We're like, yeah, cool. Okay. Jeff came up with the name because we were big. He'll tell you the story. We were both big NWO fans. So Jeff's like, well, how about the Insiders instead of the Outsiders? And that's kind of where we got our name from. And that's where it all started. If you go back and you look at like our very first video that we did, it was insane. It was a podcast that became a video, an audio podcast that became a video. And Jeff did a whole bunch of graphics and things like that for it and made it look as great as he possibly could. That is not easy. If you ever try to go and do that, that is not easy. What I'd recommend, if and we'll talk a little bit about this too, but if you ever want to do something like this on your own, my advice would be is to start an audio podcast first. It's way easier. It's much easier to get distributed, and stuff like that. Kind of start there and generate some some listeners and stuff like that on there, and then move to the video eventually. Jeff had a hell of a time talking me into doing video. I was a nervous wreck to go into video. Jeff and poor Jeff, he's like, I think we really should turn. And he was being as patient as he possibly could have, because basically what he's saying to me is like, I'm really tired of having to do all this graphic stuff.
What the translation to that is, dude, do you know how much freaking work these videos? And then not only this isn't anyone's fault but YouTube, but then uploading the darn videos sometimes. And part of that too is when we first started this podcast, and I'm gonna get emotional, so I'm gonna apologize in advance. But when we first started this podcast, I was living in South Carolina.
Yes.
And I was living with my aunt, and I'll just say, there in South Carolina, growing up on a dirt road, there are many things that are fast. Internet is not one of those things. So just knowing that sometimes I would put on a video and it'd tell me that it uploaded in 5 hours or 13 hours or whatever it was sometimes. But honestly, it was a labor of love. I feel like when we first started out and we were doing those videos, it was so different from what other people were doing. And I mean, it just enhanced what we were doing. And I love doing that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm a marketing guy by trade. That's my day job. So I love doing the branding stuff and creating logos and all of that. And then this also gave me an opportunity to do more with music that, I love to create my own music. So this gave me an opportunity to do that as well.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that was really like humble beginnings. We kind of wish, looking back at it now, that we would have done some video stuff for things that we did just audio for. We look back at that. Oh my gosh. Then what was the name of those crazy pay-per-views that the Good Brothers did?
Talking Shop-A-Mania.
Oh my God. They were like, we did nothing but laugh for literally 2 hours straight. And they would have been insane if we did videos for them, because people like literally seeing us cracking up laughing. If you haven't seen any of those, go back and watch them. But we were still doing just audio at that time. And then Jeff is like, but I've always done this kind of thing throughout my life. I've done journalism. I went to college for it. I was a college radio station DJ back in the, 88, 89. To tell you how old that was, I was still playing records when I was DJing, which I don't, nothing like that now. But I had never been on video. I'd never done anything like that. I'd done audio. So the audio podcast, which was just kind of came easy to me. My daughter was the one who convinced me to do those. And I started with my 80s one that I did. And then of course, coming over here. So the audio stuff was easy for me to do. The video stuff I really was hesitant about. I didn't know how to feel about doing video, but of course now I never want to go back. But that's kind of humble beginnings, right? It's and really, we just in a way lucked out because of when we did end up starting, because without when we started, of course, remember, everyone was at home. It wasn't just us. Everyone was at home. And so the good thing about that was we were able to get in touch with wrestlers that we probably would never have been able to do if had COVID not happened, because they would have been out wrestling, doing things, and people like Thunder Rosa, who we had an amazing conversation. You all know her now, of course, AEW champion since then. Her career just shot. And we got to talk to her very early on, and just some amazing interviews. Jeff got us an interview with Nikita Koloff, a legend of the wrestling business. We got to talk to Holodead, who was awesome.
Right.
I mean,
And
just
she's absolutely killing it. And wow.
oh, well, it was such a fun interview. And I remember her getting back to me saying, I don't usually do these kinds of things because I'm nervous and I don't really, and I was so glad that she decided to do it. We had so much fun talking to her, and it was a little tough because we couldn't edit it. It had to be put on adult only, basically, because a lot of F-bombs were dropped. And but man, it was so much fun. We got to talk to Zicky Dice very early on. We all know he's on Impact, and we see him all the time now. But got to talk to him and some independent wrestlers, and it was awesome.
All Day,
All Day was fantastic. He was in Booker T's promotion, and now he's with AEW. So many of these people have gone on to bigger Rohit Raju. He's gone on to bigger companies, and it was just amazing.
Josh Alexander.
Yeah, man, it was so much fun getting to interview these people, and we kind of based our what we did around pretty much those interviews. And at that time, again, it was really just doing, although albeit the one legendary, and we did play that at one point. The one legendary interview that we did that we won't discuss, that was horrible, with the kid who was supposed to be a wrestler who couldn't have been more than 8 years old, or maybe 10. But that was horrendous.
Wrestling training with Teddy Ruxpin.
With with the stuff.
I'm joking.
It could very well have been.
It might have been. Who knows?
The Hernandez interview. Oh yes,
the Hernandez
interview was wonderful. Such a good dude, man. Talked to us about his football career and so many things. It was so good. And we had so many people on. Yeah, Heath and Jordan Grace were on. Thanks to Jeff's
Macklin.
Macklin. Eddie Edwards, Josh and Jade, man, when we had them on for New Year's Eve. That was terrific. We did a New Year's Eve stream, and had the both of them on together. And look at now, Josh goes on that run, was champion. Jade now is one of the announcers, part of the announcing team there. It was so amazing in just this little bit of time, that we got to speak to these people, and that they gave us their time, and really, they kind of took a chance on us too, right? Because we were new. Certainly not established, certainly not with the thousands and thousands and thousands of views that a lot of people will do. Well, I'm not going to go on a podcast. If they have like 10K, 15K, yeah, I'll go on. But otherwise, I'm not going on there. So we're so appreciative of that. And Jeff, I know, got to talk to some other people via Nikita Koloff behind the scenes. And it was just, so that's kind of where we came from, right? That's kind of where we all started. And it's just been amazing. It really has been amazing. And so that said, Jeff, you know what? Let's go into, a lot of people know our story. Let's go into a little bit about maybe each one of us and things that maybe kind of people that, so for the sake of, if people didn't see the interviews with Dom, Jeff, you were involved in sports.
Yeah.
Tell the guys what you did, because I would bet you that a lot of them had no idea.
Yeah. So are you talking about my tie to wrestling?
Well, you could, of course, there, but your profession actually that you were in. Who you worked for?
So I worked for a couple big organizations. I'm not going to mention one because already.
Yeah.
But another big sports organization that I worked for was the NCAA. Them I'll talk about. Not very favorably, but I'll talk about them. The NCAA, the rules are so ridiculous. Um, and I'm so glad that they changed a lot of them. Um, I will tell you, and hopefully I don't get in trouble for this. I'm not mentioning names or schools. So, but there was a young lady, she was a volleyball player, and tragically her parents passed away in a car accident. The president of the university bought this girl flowers and gave her a stuffed animal. Okay. She was deemed ineligible until she paid back the cost of the items that he gifted her during
Mm,
that time.
mm,
So the school put in a waiver and they had to go through all this work for somebody being a human being, all because this young lady played a sport. Now, of course, you can make millions of dollars off of your name and likeness, but back then, you could not accept a gift without being without being deemed ineligible. So times have changed. They need to continue changing. That rule book is just way too thick. Um, and not well, never mind. I won't go there. We won't talk about the different kinds of thickness, but um, it's way too thick in the wrong way, and it needs to have some rules taken out of it because what many people don't know, a lot of the rules that still are in the rule book today were written and implemented when the NCAA was founded.
mm.
And that obviously student athletes then versus now completely different. The money's different. So yeah. And the other company, I'll just say that yeah, they continue to lay off a lot of people. Um but I did see that someone else is going there that has a tie to wrestling. So
Mm,
one Mr. Pat McAfee.
there you go. There you go. And then, of course, Jeff was in wrestling as well, and that's where he gets all the lot of knowledge there, and he again there's things that about our past you can't really speak about because of the people that that were involved and the stuff that was involved. But Jeff was in independent wrestling, and he did make a comeback right when we started this. Actually,
A
uh,
failed comeback is what they
well, the body didn't like it, but the
no.
the the, the spirit was there.
Maybe
So
the spirit was there. The spirit was there sometimes.
but he did try to, and it was what we were going to do was we were going to actually use that on the channel. We are going to cover that
Mhm,
as part of a like a journey
mhm.
of a wrestler on the indie scene and stuff like that. And kind of gave him a chance, but where what's that saying, the spirit is willing but the body was just yeah. And so unfortunately it got a little bit more hurt than he wanted to. and the comeback couldn't continue. But yeah, so got to meet some amazing people. And again, the names won't be said, of course, to protect the innocent, because we
Yeah,
we we won't, but he got to meet some amazing people on that journey.
yeah,
And I mean, just tell the guys, Jeff, I mean, because I don't think a lot of people really know maybe what the indie wrestlers have to go through, and what their journeys are like. Sometimes we see all of this, we see the big companies, right, where they've
yeah,
made it to those big companies, and it's very easy. But when Jeff talks on the show about supporting indie wrestling, and he's mentioned that before, it comes from the heart, because he knows how hard that is to do, how hard it is to actually get up to those bigger companies sometimes in that ladder.
yeah. I mean, honestly, with wrestling, I think a lot of people's perception is that, well, if they're wrestling, that means that they're making money. Well, I'm going to recommend another podcast for you to listen to if you haven't listened to it. It's the Pivot Podcast, and they had The Rock on there last week, and he talked about his first when he first started out in the wrestling business, and they asked him how much money, who had a bigger first check, him or his daughter in wrestling. And he talked about his story where he made $40. And they said, "What? What do you mean $40?" And he's $40 to wrestle. Um, sometimes I'll say this: when I first started out, my pay was concession stand. I'm not
Mm,
joking. Like I would
mm.
get a hot dog, some popcorn, and a drink, and that was my pay. And um, you didn't look at it as, well, man, I'm not getting paid. I'm not. It's more about paying your dues as a wrestler, learning the craft, learning more about the business, the inner workings, and um, I mean, being able to put up and tear down a ring. That's a badge of honor. So, and the training, not easy, not easy. And no, you cannot do it properly with training with stuffed animals. I can tell
No.
you that.
Yeah, that's not
Um,
going to work.
that's not going to work. Um, so, and I'll say this: one of my least favorite things, especially back then, because I was much heavier back then than I am right now. Running the ropes sucked. I mean, sucked. But I will say that I got to meet a lot of cool people, got to work with a lot of cool people. Um, you know, a lot of friendships out of that. Um, some of these people I don't talk to on a very regular basis because they are very busy at their current employers. um, but yeah, I mean, it's it was a really cool experience, and I will say, because my the guy that trained me, that was working, he worked with me when I was younger, and then he was helping me with my comeback. I actually spoke to him about a month ago, and he says, "Hey, big man, I still got that footage if you want it." And I was like, "What, to send it to America's Funniest Home Videos?" Maybe that might work because it would give me some extra money right now. Um, but yeah, I mean, one day, Joe, if it's not too embarrassing, I may show that footage of me running ropes, and I will say that the Lord has done works in me since then, because um, there's a lot of words said while I was running those ropes that will have to be bleeped. Um, because, and not because I've seen the footage, just because I know what I said when I was running those ropes, and it was all very, very loud and obnoxious. But yeah, I let out some words, and I'm not proud of that, but I thank God for growth. So, but yeah, it honestly, wrestling, and I don't mean to get too sentimental or um and Joe, I actually want to flip this and ask you a question because of what
Yeah.
I'm about to bring up. But wrestling, wrestling means a lot to me because, and I'm not saying this is hyperbole, but wrestling has saved my life on three separate occasions. Um, when I first started training, um, my mother had just passed away,
Mm.
and I was dealing with some addiction issues. I was dealing with severe, severe depression, um, and just gaining a new group of friends, um, gaining family, being able to do something athletic again, meant the world to me. And um, one of those friends told me, "Hey, we really want you to wrestle, but you got to cut that other stuff out." And So that helped me so much. And it's weird. I don't know if I've ever told this story, but it's weird how I even started training and how I got into this. So this was during college, and I was in my advanced television production class. And a part of our grade that semester was to film a documentary. So we came together as a group, and everyone was like, we should do professional wrestling. It's like, what? And I'm not going to say whose idea it was. I'm not going to say whose idea it was. That doesn't matter at this point. It was my idea. But anyway, um, we did, we did a documentary on independent professional wrestling, and when we went, um, the guys were like, "Man, you're a big dude, and we can tell that you're an athlete. Would you be interested?" So what we ended up doing was taking the premise of it and flipping it, and kind of doing a journey along with me while telling the story of the promotion. So it was a cool little project, but I'm so thankful for that time.
That's awesome, dude. That's awesome. And see that it's cool because that's why, different from other podcasts that, Jeff has that experience in the business. And so you'll get a different perspective on that because he knows what it's like to be in that struggle of where a lot of these wrestlers are that they never get out of. They go and do this stuff when sometimes you'll see it, from wrestlers when they do those biographies and stuff like that, and how they struggled early on in their careers when they were driving around for, gas money, basically, to make it back and forth to go to these wrestling shows just to do this and to get into it. But when you hear it from somebody that it's different. You hear it from these guys that are so almost larger than life personalities, but to hear it from somebody that you see weekly on a show, it comes off as a different way.
Yeah. I mean, the journey as an independent wrestler. I mean, you're buying your own gear. You're driving yourself to every event that you're booked on. The money's not great, so just gonna throw that out there.
Yep.
But it's good because you do it for the love of it. And I mean, I've seen quite a few guys get that big opportunity to go other places. A lot of those guys that I knew very well ended up with TNA early on. We did a lot of work with them, but um, but yeah, I mean, it's a grind, but it weeds out the people that don't love it, and the people that do, that are invested, that want to do it. You do it, and there are weeks that you may wrestle in front of a packed house of 500 to 1,000 people. And then there are other weeks when you go to your local armory and you wrestle there and you might have 15 people. So just
it's very different. Yeah, and
it is.
again, we don't see that part of it.
Right.
And the struggle, and just people just kind of think that all these people that are there really, well, they got lucky. It's not how it works. And so it's a struggle for anyone to get to where they are, and especially to get to these big companies and stuff like that. So I'll get to Mark's question, and then I'll go into a little bit of my background. It's not as exciting. But especially, did you ever think about your love of wrestling in your younger age? Did you ever think that your love of wrestling in your younger age when you were wrestling, that it would turn into doing this podcast show for the two of you and meet up to do this? I don't think I've ever. I mean, to be honest, the dream of journalism for me kind of died after I was writing for a newspaper. And a lot of people are going to be like, "What is a newspaper?
What is the news?"
I was going out and covering sports locally, basically. So You're not familiar with that. It's basically you're going out and covering Little League games. You're covering
Mhm.
softball games. You're covering,
High
that kind of
school,
high
high
school
school
stuff,
sports.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joe,
And
Joe and I are fellow former newspaper people.
yes.
Joe got this. I was a sports reporter as well, but I also lucked out and got the local government beat.
Mm.
So I was going to all the council meetings and all those things. So yeah, learned a lot about local government back then.
I, I I remember when I was in college and my first day of my first, and when you go to school, when you're in college, your first 2 years of going, it's all general classes. They don't start giving you your major classes until you get to the third and fourth years. And I can remember, I'll never forget this till, as long as I live, walked into my classroom, my first journalism class, so excited, right? I was like, oh my God, this is going to be great. I'm finally taking my major classes. I can't wait. We walk in, professor comes in. We're all sitting there, all these bright-eyed young 20-something-year-olds. And the first thing he says to us is, so you want to be journalism, huh? Well, if you want to do that, first off, you got to move to a big city. One of the places where the Associated Press is Los Angeles or New York. Secondly, if you don't do that, you're not going to make any money doing this whatsoever. That was the first thing we heard. You want to talk about deflating? Like, you're all fired up thinking like, oh my God. And that was the first thing we heard from the dude. And I'm like, oh.
He wasn't lying.
He wasn't. He was being completely honest. And I
Yeah.
think maybe that's why, like, in my career that I'm in now in retail, I think that's maybe where I learned to be that way. I am, if anyone who's worked for me over the 33 years that I've been doing this would ever say one thing about me is I'm brutally honest to a fault almost, where, these companies don't want you saying certain things to your employees, but I do anyway, because I like being honest with people. And maybe that's where it came from. I don't know. But what a downer. You get into this thing and you're all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and ready to go. Oh, I want to get to it. And he says this right at the start. And I'm like, oh.
Oh man.
It's like, but yeah. And then that was kind of the end of that. My wife actually kept a scrapbook of all the newspaper articles I've ever done. Was the coolest thing. And I still have it. Clipped them all out because my name would be on the byline of the article, and it still has a scrapbook upstairs with it. So, and so to answer your question, no, I never would have gave it a second thought, because I just assumed it was very, very hard to do this. And a lot of it is. And so when my daughter, my oldest, said to me, Dad, you should really try to do podcasting, I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I work in technology. I have most of my life with cell phones and, oh my God, various very different companies, 3 or 4 different companies through my career. But I just was like, nah, there's no way I'm going to be able to do that. And she showed me an app. It's now called Spotify Podcast. It was Anchor for a little while. And she's like, it's so easy. So you could do it right from your phone and stuff like that. So I did. And I started off doing, I'm like, well, what the hell am I going to do this about? And then I thought, well, I'm kind of a big 80s nerd. I like 80s stuff. I always loved 80s music. And it was such a great time to grow up. And MTV and all of that stuff that they had during that decade. So I was like, yeah, I don't know, maybe I'll just do something about the 80s and just kind of tell stories. And that's kind of where I started with it. And then from there, again, that's, I told you, it comes back around. And I told you that's where I met Jeff, and that's where we decided to do this. But did I ever have it in mind or in the back of my mind? No. I never would have thought I would have been able to do this. And that's kind of why I tell you guys all the time that it's like I'm kind of living my dream now. So one thing I would say is never give up on anything, because you just don't know. things kind of could come back around for you. I mean, I'm going on 54 years old. Would I have ever thought that I'd be doing this and sitting in front of a video camera when I was 53 years old? No, not on your life. Because I just didn't see a way. And fortunately, I met Jeff. Jeff's very good at what he does and does all the behind the scenes stuff and makes everything look awesome, and makes the videos and stuff like that. And he's taught me some things. I'm, the fact that I can now start a show on my own, and go into that without killing it. Hey, I'm pretty proud of myself for that. But listen, I had a good teacher. So yeah, so no, I would have never thought I would do it. A couple things about me you may not know, or you may. I'm a big nerd, geek, whatever you want to call it. I've read comic books since I was probably 6 years old. And I never really read a lot of mainstream ones. I was a big Spider-Man fan, but I read like weird comic books. I read Doctor Strange. I read like Fantastic Four. I read DC stuff that was just unusual. One of my favorite comic book heroes is a person named Man-Thing, who's kind of like a swamp creature for Marvel. And I'll just tell you a quick funny story about that. The reason why I like him so much, there used to be years ago, and I still own this to this day, right? The first thing I'll tell you, it's a record. Well, what's a record? It's this final little disc that you played and you played music. Well, years ago, they used to make comic books with these records in them. Okay. It was called the Book and Record, and you'd buy them. And basically what it was it was kind of like an audiobook is today, right? They would have this little record you'd listen to, and there would be a person who's voicing the story. So they're reading the character stuff. They're doing sound, a little bit like sound effects and things. It was like it was in the 70s, and it was, they did the best they could with them. But my mother, God bless her, my mom went out and she knows I like listening to these things, right? I was probably like 7. And she goes out and she gets me this book called Man-Thing, right? Now, it was part of a genre of Marvel that they did horror stuff. So you want to know how I got my interest in horror? Probably from this, because she bought me this book and record, and the gist of the story, and I don't know why the cover didn't throw her off, because the cover has this creature on the front with this clown that had killed himself in a swamp. That was the gist of the story, right? It was a horror book. So this swamp creature hears a gunshot and goes to see what it was, and this clown shot himself. This was given to me when I was 7 years old. So you wonder why I turned out liking some of this stuff. There's probably a good reason why. But yeah. So and I carried a lot of that stuff over with me to this day. And I will say this, I'm extremely grateful. I had just gone back not that long ago and rewatched Superman, the very first one from 1978. It was a very special movie to me because seeing that when I was 9 years old was like me looking at this man flying on a screen, and I was in awe. The scene where he grabs the helicopter where it's coming down and crashing, and Lois is in the helicopter, and he goes up and grabs her, and grabs the helicopter and stops it from falling. My breath was taken away. And so to see all of these films coming to life and bringing this stuff to life that I love so much is unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable. And while people complain about them and bitch about them like they do wrestling and everything else, I will always enjoy it because I came up through a time where nothing like this existed unless it was in here. Imagination. It was the only way you could. And they didn't have the capability or the technology to bring this stuff to life back then. And it's just absolutely amazing to see it. So that's where I come from. I do hang out in a group that I created many, many years ago. It's probably going on 15 years or so now on Facebook, called the Consortium for the Greater Geek, where we do nothing but just share geek stuff. And so that's a big part of my life. I'm a gamer. love of online RPGs. I started off with EverQuest many, many years ago. My friends got me into it because they secretly wanted me to be this character that would help them and didn't tell me why. And I didn't realize it until it was too late. They told me to be a bard. I'm like, ooh, okay. Well, wait, I'm a musician. Yeah. Well, what do I do? Well, you play these spells, like these musical spells. Okay. Well, what does that do for me? Well, it helps us. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. So, but I didn't realize that when I tried to play the game on my own and they weren't playing, I would get destroyed because I was terrible. They only got me to do this because I would help them. And then I went on to play Warcraft, World of Warcraft, which I played. God, oh my God, I spent so many hours on that game. But I met a lot of really cool people in there too, and got to be friends with some people who I never knew. Similar to a lot of you, a lot of people, we got to meet a lot of people in Canada and things that we were in guilds with and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm a gamer. I don't game as much as I used to. I used to get lost in RPGs. Final Fantasies, one of my favorite series. I can play them until all hours of the morning, and I have. If I get hooked on a story, I'm hooked. And games like they just came out with a game called The Quarry, but they made like story like it games before that, and Heavy Rain, I think, was one of them. I can get lost in that stuff. It's amazing. And yeah, but that's really me. I'm kind of just a big kid. I like all these things, and that's really will lead into now, because we got to get into this, Jeff, and that's, I guess, how I got into wrestling too.
Yeah, that was going to be my question to you: is how did who got you into wrestling, and how did you first get into wrestling? What kind of your first reactions to seeing it?
Had to be my dad, I'm sure. And I probably saw it kind of watching over his shoulder, that he may have had it on TV. I can remember, again, I've told this story, but I can remember he would take me to little events in very small gyms. And because that's where the wrestlers would go. And I told the story of meeting Andre the Giant. And he put his hand on my head. That was a highlight of after that, my dad taking me to the live shows and stuff like that. Then I realized, okay, it's on every Saturday. So I would get up, and instead of my Saturday morning cartoons, I'd flick on Saturday morning wrestling. And I remember it was on Channel 9, WOR TV, that came out of New York. And I would watch that faithfully every single Saturday for 1 hour, because that's all it really was on. And I watched it faithfully, and I started watching, and I was pretty much hooked. I found my favorites early on. It was really funny because looking at it now, like I know, because I didn't know what heels and faces were back then. I didn't know what jobbers were back then. And it was so funny because I think I rooted for all the jobbers. One of my favorite wrestlers when I was younger was Special Delivery Jones, SD Jones. And the dude lost every single week. And there I am, and I'm rooting for this guy. I'm like, come on, SD Jones, win. And I didn't know. Andre the Giant. Yes, it was Andre the Giant. But I didn't know that these people were meant to lose these things, and I didn't know wrestling wasn't real. I didn't know that it was scripted. I didn't know. I thought this stuff was really going on. I love Pedro Morales. Was a huge fan of his. The Rock's dad, Rocky Johnson, absolutely loved him. Tony Atlas.
Yeah.
I think of more of the people who I saw. Sergeant Slaughter, who I absolutely hated. Loved Jimmy Superfly Snuka. Oh man. The Mr. Fuji and Saito tag team. They cheated all the time. I hated the cheaters. Because they always cheated my favorites out of stuff. And oh my gosh. But I got so into it. My dad took me to my first big show in Philadelphia. And I went to see it in the Philadelphia Spectrum. And it was bigger card. I guess you could probably compare it to like a big pay-per-view event now. But they weren't shown on TV. It was just a big show. And I got to see the Strongbow brothers, who I absolutely love, Chief Jay and Jules Strongbow, go up against the Wild Samoans. So of course Romans heritage. And I got to see the championship match. Was the champion at the time was Bob Backlund go up against the Masked Superstar. And there was another dude who I absolutely hated. Couldn't stand this guy. I mean, everybody was for Backlund. He'd keep his head down. He was so soft spoken when he spoke, and he was like this very polite and very, a face personified. But that was, I went to see it and I loved it. So that's where it came from, Jeff. It had to have come from, and I'm sure my dad was watching it on TV and stuff too. So my love for the sport came from that. And since then, man, I was hooked. It went on to be where Bobby the Brain Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon every single night on USA Network that I could see it. And at that point, it just took off. I was hooked. How about you, man? Who got you into it? I think I know this answer, but I don't think the people in our community probably do.
Right. So again, I'm gonna try not to get emotional. But my mom actually got me into wrestling. My dad, we didn't have the best relationship, and he he loved baseball, and that was his thing. So, but my mom really got me into wrestling, and she would tell me all these stories about, she traveled a lot for work, and she would tell me all these stories about seeing wrestlers on the plane and in the airport, and it's like, hey mom, take a camera next time.
Right.
And folks, if you're younger, when I say take a camera and go get the film developed, and you're like, what in the world is that? Google is your friend. I won't take up a lot of your time to go over that. But yeah, so she would see a lot of wrestlers, and particularly because of where I grew up in the South, she would run into Ric Flair quite often. So I'll never forget my first live match, like big time live match that I saw, was Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat at the Greensboro Coliseum. That was my first like major show. It was freaking awesome. So yeah, so that was the first one. I mean, I had gone to other shows because back then wrestling promotions would always run high school gyms, armories, that kind of thing.
Yep.
So I got to see a lot of wrestling. Actually had a wrestler grow up in my backyard.
Oh wow.
Junkyard Dog, and he was a local, local hero, local favorite. So yeah, so got to see him and be a part of that back home. And yeah, I saw a lot of NWA, Jim Crockett promotions, a lot of Southern wrestling promotions. At that time, and later on WCW. At that time, I would catch WWF sometimes, but I was more into NWA, Jim Crockett promotions, a lot of the Southern promotions at that time. But yeah, my mom got me into it. She was a yeah, bonus baby for real.
I saw his comment. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. What a way to start.
Yeah, I know. So didn't watch a lot of WWF, but I mean, I knew who the big names were, knew who Roddy Piper was, knew about Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, so it was, I enjoyed growing up where I did, because it's such a wrestling rich area. And then the fans down south, not saying that they weren't this way everywhere, especially back then before the advent of the internet and people getting insight into the wrestling business. But back then, you would just see some crazy stuff with wrestlers. I mean, people, and Nikita Koloff said as much in during his interview. You have people trying to beat these guys up and um, threaten them because of their
Mm.
gimmicks. And that was the one thing that I really appreciated. Like I loved the heels, loved all the heels. Um, that didn't really change until Sting came along.
Mm.
Um, when Sting came along, it was over. Like, and I'm not talking about people that are younger may not realize, but when Sting first started out, he actually first started out in a tag team with the Ultimate Warrior. That was the Blade Runners. That's how he
Yep.
got his start.
Yep.
But Sting was bleached blonde, high top, very colorful attire, and yeah, I mean he was the man. He was the man. So Sting was my guy. Once he came in, it was over for everybody else. But Dusty Rhodes, Harley Race, seeing those guys, I mean, it's just tremendous seeing the formation of the Four Horsemen and the folks that they had in that group throughout the years. Just I was blessed to be able to see the wrestling that I did, and it was a cool bonding thing too with me and my mom. And I'm sad that she didn't get a chance to see me actually wrestle. Um, I'm pretty sure she would have done the same thing she did when I played sports, is she would have been in the crowd and making a lot of noise, and I would have had to have a sit down talk with her and be like, listen, it's okay. I'm I'm not. People don't really. Well, they may really hate me, but I'm working my gimmick. That's all I'm doing. So,
Yep.
but yeah, but I wish you would have gotten to see me wrestle. But it was cool to be able to do it and kind of think to where it all started. So
Mm. That's awesome.
yeah.
Um, as it went on, and Jeff was talking about, like, for me, it's funny because we come from completely two different backgrounds in wrestling, which I think makes this work even more, because Jeff was more the Southern wrestling, did, like he said, the NWA and things like that, where I was all Northern. I couldn't see any of the Southern wrestling at all. It wasn't on our cable TV. The only time I'd get to see it every now and then would be very, very late night. They'd put some stuff on ESPN. When ESPN first started, and also every now and then I'd get to see it on one particular station, and so I was never introduced to any of that. I didn't know any of that. The only thing I knew was WWF and WWE at the time. So as you can imagine, being a young man in my teens, it wasn't very hard to hook me into the whole thing with Hulk Hogan. That just exploded. And Hulk Hogan, and as you can see, I told you about my geek background. Hulk Hogan was portrayed as a superhero, and that's why I loved it. Hook, line, and sinker. I was sold. And as it went on, I will tell you how hard it freaking was to watch pay-per-views back then. You listen, they were, when I remember wanting so badly to watch WrestleMania 3 because of Andre Hogan and because of all the other, Jake the Snake Roberts, and because of all these other amazing matches. I wanted so badly to watch it with my friends. And the only way you could do this was to go to your cable company and get this little thing, this metal thing they called a descrambler, because on your cable box there was one channel. I won't talk to you about what that channel showed when it wasn't showing pay-per-view wrestling. But there was one channel that was always scrambled. By scrambled, I mean you couldn't see the picture. Well, if you mess around enough with the little dial, you could sometimes tune a picture in and get to see something you really shouldn't see. But again, that's neither here nor there. So to get that channel, to watch that and get it unscrambled for the pay-per-view, it was like $130 or $140 back then. And now listen, that may not seem like a lot of money today, right? But back then, the minimum wage for workers in the United States was $3.35 an hour. So imagine that, paying for $140 pay-per-view, and imagine what your parents are going to say. Absolutely not.
No.
So the only way we could do it, now, luckily we had no social media. We had nothing like that to spoil us with anything. But what I ended up doing was I ended up leaving it on that station where the squiggly lines were going through to try to hear bits and pieces of it and get little glimpses of pictures. And I left it on the entire time because you could hear some of the audio. But you couldn't see it until the video came out on VHS like months later. I'm talking months later. So WrestleMania 3 came out, and I think it was probably like 4 or 5 months later that the video cassettes came out. And then you'd have to go to the video store, you'd have to rent the tape, and you'd have to watch it on it. Well, I remember having this big gathering of friends where we got the tapes finally. We had gone to the video store so many times and they were sold out. They didn't have it. That's what sucked. They'd have these little boxes on their rack, and you think, oh, they have it. Look at it. Nope, because the tapes were actually behind the boxes. And so when they weren't there, they were out of it. But we finally got a hold of them, and we were able to sit down and watch it. And I remember just being like amazed at the spectacle that was. And for me, I was starting to get into horror then. So seeing Alice Cooper up there with Jake the Snake Roberts was still one of my big memories, because Alice, I started listening to his music because of the Friday the 13th stuff that he did, and the Man Behind the Mask for Friday the 13th Part 6. Of course, Andre Hogan, Steamboat, and I mean, just the matches of that to this day, that's still going to be my favorite WrestleMania, and it's probably not close. But it was 140. That's a tank of gas. But yeah, dude, listen, it was super expensive back then. But that's how we had to watch. We had no access to things like we do today. It was very, very difficult. And how you got your news in between, magazines, wrestling magazines, and they were behind because they would be covering matches that haven't happened the prior month. So you weren't getting any brand new news. You weren't hearing anything as it happened live. That wasn't a thing. So very, very, very different and very, very difficult to sometimes be a wrestling fan, because all you would get to see would be the highlights when you'd watch Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon. And some of those matches were from what we would call house shows today. They would take these matches from a house show and they'd put this together in this live video that they would do. But oh my gosh, but it was difficult, man. It was difficult to be a wrestling fan. And but then I think when the whole Hogan thing happened, it brought it more mainstream. And that's when I started to see, when I was going to school, more kids would be talking about it. More people would be asking about, well, what happened? And we were like the coolest kids on the block when we got to watch WrestleMania on videotape, because the next day we were going in, we're talking on the bus. Oh, did you see this? It was so cool. How did you see that? Oh, we rented the tape. My mom at the time, my parents were divorced. My mom actually was dating a dude that owned a video store. So how was that? Every time he got a video, I had it first.
That's awesome.
Oh my God, it was amazing. So yeah, but it was so difficult to do. And then of course, we get a little further along, and I guess it kind of waned for me a little bit when I went to college, but then the 90s, and good Lord, here came the NWO, here came the Undertaker. And that just blew my mind. The stuff with Sting, like Jeff was talking about when he did the Crow thing. Oh my God, Crow is one of my favorite films. And when he did that, and the whole thing with Hogan, Hogan, I loved him better as a heel than I liked him in the NW or as a red and yellow Hogan. And just seeing all that, I was just must watch. I couldn't decide. And again, back then you couldn't tape stuff. So I had to keep switching channels. And I had to keep going one channel to the other channel to the other channel. Well, let me see what's happening on Nitro. Let me see what's happening on WWE. Back and forth, and you'd miss all of it. It was not easy. But oh my God, Jeff, was it fun? What a fun time. No social media, no people putting crap down all the time, no people crapping on things. It was just so much fun, and it was can't miss TV. You couldn't miss either show because so much stuff was happening on both. And then you see that interaction kind of between them both, and it was just mind-blowing. And what a time to grow up being a wrestling fan. And at that point, I mean, I'm in my 20s, later 20s and stuff like that when that was going on, but and a full-blown horror fan. And when The Undertaker came out, I'll never forget my reaction to that, Jeff. When he walked out, I'm like, who is that? With the long hair and the Undertaker hat and the suit and then he just decimated everyone in the ring. And I'm like, yeah, I like him. He's
pretty cool.
He's pretty awesome. And oh my gosh, but Jeff, what was it? I mean, you have to have memories of that era too. And whether it was the 80s, 90s, and stuff like that, but that just, I think, really fueled it. I mean, if I wasn't already that decade, the late 80s and the beginning of the 90s, that was where I just was watching constantly every single week, and it was just can't miss.
Yeah, I will admit that back then I was much more of a WCW guy.
Yep.
So I did see some of Stone Cold and The Rock and a lot of the Attitude Era. Obviously, I remembered the first thing that I said when someone told me about Stone Cold. I was like, "Oh, you mean Stunning Steve Austin?" What? Who's Stunning Steve? I was like, the same dude that you're calling Stone Cold right now. He just shaved his head and he doesn't have blonde hair anymore.
There you go.
So yeah, Stunning Steve Austin. I will say though, him and Pillman as a tag team back then, tremendous. But I loved when he had his run as the TV champion in WCW. But yeah, WCW for me was I was always watching WCW. Like I said, big fan of Sting. So just seeing the stuff that he was doing and a lot of the encounters he had, Mean Mark, James Grant. I thought the same thing. Someone was telling me about the Undertaker, and I didn't see it live, but someone was like, "Man, this dude," and it's not like people had phones and the internet and you could pull this stuff up. So, man, this dude, and they were describing him. I'm like, is that Mean Mark? So I ended up being able to see it, and I was like, that's Mean Mark Calloway. That's freaking Mean Mark Calloway. So a lot of good, a lot of big name wrestlers that came through WCW with just some very, we'll say, interesting gimmicks. Like Kevin Nash being Oz.
Yep.
Go look that one up if you want some fun. Scott Hall, rest in peace, used to be with Diamond Dallas Page. I believe his name was Diamond Stud.
Yeah.
So, and Scott Hall back in the day looked very different than he looked as Razor Ramon. So
yes, they did.
But yeah, there was so much. But seeing Hogan, first off, seeing him leave WWF. Yeah, Triple H was what was it? No, it was
Hunter Hearst Helmet. Well, no,
Terror Rising.
Oh, that
Terror Rising. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Damn.
Yeah. But Yeah, he was terrorizing in WCW.
Oh
But
my God.
but seeing Hogan jump ship from WWF to WCW
Was crazy.
was crazy because
Yeah.
I mean you had all the matchups that you always dreamed of. Like I always wanted to see Hogan and Sting. I always wanted to see Hogan and Flair, in WCW. Um, so many matchups, and I'm gonna admit this too, and I might get picked at about this, but I don't really care. You can pick at me. It's all good. I was a huge Dungeon of Doom mark.
Okay. Yeah.
Kevin Sullivan
Yep.
and all, all those guys. It was it was it was goofy, fun. Um, they didn't intend it that way, I don't think, but that's how I that's that's what made me enjoy it. But yeah, I mean, guys like the Undertaker and I mean, they changed the game. They changed the game,
Yeah,
and
they did.
I mean, we'd seen dark characters before, but never one done like that. So,
Yep. Yep.
um, yeah, I'll never forget um, the first time I saw the Undertaker, and I'll never forget the old WCW days when they did the Hog Wild pay-per-views out in Sturgis.
Yes. With Sturgis. Yeah.
And they'd ride their bikes out there and all that. So yeah, it was really really cool. A cool time to be a wrestling fan.
Oh my gosh, man. You know, if you were watching Nitro and you were watching WCW when that whole NWO thing had begun, and then like the what that led to in defections from WWF coming over there, you could literally watch Nitro every single week and see someone coming that came from WWF and WWE. Macho Man Randy Savage, Bret the Hitman Hart, Rowdy Roddy Piper. Which, by the way, if you've never seen his thing with the Alcatraz stuff with Hulk Hogan,
Oh,
dude, you will die laughing. The guy he said he was gonna live in Alcatraz in the prison, and when he came to wrestle Hogan, he didn't shower, didn't shave, didn't eat, didn't and when he came into the ring, Hogan was going like this, like he stunk. Classic. But you saw all of these people coming over, and it's like, oh my God, like
mhm,
they're losing everybody. What are they going to do? Like
mhm.
these were not small names. These were
Lex
huge.
Luger.
Lex Luger came over. Like next, you're seeing all these people coming over to either go against the NWO or to join them, one or the other. And it was crazy, man. It was insane. Um, and but somehow WWE and WWF hung on. But like Jeff said, that was when they started grooming the people who they had, and Stone Cold Steve Austin came on so strong. Shawn Michaels, Triple H, The Undertaker. So this war thing was, I'll tell you what, it may not have been a long war. We know it didn't last very long, but I'll tell you what it was good for. Man, was it good for the fans
Yeah.
to just see that stuff so much every week. And like I said, it was just must see TV. You couldn't get away from it. No matter how much you tried, you had to watch. It was must see TV for everybody involved. Um, so some favorite characters, Jeff. I guess we could transition into this. We talked about the Undertaker, and obviously the feelings mutual for them.
Mhm.
Just name me a couple of, and then I'll give mine. A couple of characters who just really stuck with you over the years in wrestling. So, give me like two or three of like favorite wrestling characters that you just were, you're like, man, these characters just resonate with me.
Man, so I, and again, I realize that I'm gonna get picked at, but it's fine. Kevin Sullivan always creeped me out.
Hmm.
Always.
Yeah, you did.
Um, not only was he good on the mic and as a character, but he was a darn good in-ring performer.
Yeah, he
And
was.
I mean, he just had everything.
Yep.
And I'm still thinking about, because I want to do a WCW wrestler, just because, show my bias a little bit. Although I will say the Undertaker, um, like Ultimate Warrior. Ultimate Warrior for me was, I was just waiting on the guy to just take off, like go
Yep.
into orbit. Um, the other well, you know what? I'm gonna break my rule here. I gotta say this: Jake the Snake Roberts,
Oh, no doubt.
like his promo work was so chilling. I was scared of the man.
Dude.
I was scared of him.
Yeah.
Not even because he had Damien. It was just him.
Yep.
The way he delivered his promos, and he didn't get too excited, and you knew that DDT was devastating.
Yep.
And man, yeah, he was one. But yeah, Taker, obviously, I mean, you got to put Taker up there, but
Yeah.
just because I know you're probably going to talk about him, that I wanted to go in a different direction.
Yeah. No, it's yeah, obviously Undertaker, without a doubt, because of but Jake is a great call, because I love Jake Roberts, and I don't care what you say, you go listen to a Jake Roberts promo, he's right up there, probably in the top 5 of being able to do a wrestling promo. That dude could intimidate you just with the graveliness of the way he spoke in those promos. And it didn't matter that he, like Jeff said, it didn't matter he carried a giant snake around with him. He was just an intimidating dude. So yeah, Jake obviously right up there for me. Roddy Piper, as I mentioned, and Piper's Pit. The things that he did in there, and just listen, Hot Rod was one of my favorites. Then he went in. I just watched that movie that he was in a little bit ago, that They Live movie too. And if you haven't seen that, it's now on, I think it's either on Tubi. It's on Tubi. So you could literally go watch it for free. If you have not seen that, you need to. It's a John Carpenter film, and the line that everybody remembers him for, which, by the way, when you watched his biography, they talked about this, which I thought was really cool. He kept a book. And in this little book, he used to write lines that he was going to use in promos, or maybe in future promos. Well, when John Carpenter, who's the famous director who did Halloween, among other things, Christine, and a lot of other horror films, when he brought Roddy in, he had the book with him. And John Carpenter went through this book, and he saw this line, and he said, "We're using this in the movie. I don't care how I fit it in. We're using this in the movie." And the line was, "I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum." One of my favorite, and listen,
oh man,
the fight scene in that film is one of the best fight scenes you will ever see. So much so, they used it on South Park when they had the 2 kids in the wheelchairs both imitating the fight.
And it's a long fight scene.
Oh my God, it is. It's like literally like 15, 20 minutes long. And it just keep it. And it was all because he wanted them to wear sunglasses. Put the glasses on. No, I'm not putting and they're just going, and they're fighting in an alley. Oh my God.
And Keith David is one of my favorite actors of all time. So him being in that with Roddy Piper was just tremendous. And I saw that movie not too long ago.
Yeah, it's on Tubi. If you haven't seen it, watch it. I loved Roddy Piper when he hit, and believe me, I love Jimmy Snuka. And when he hit Jimmy with the coconut, and "Do you want a coconut?" and he bashed him with the coconut, I was not a happy camper. And then of course, the thing with him and Brother Love and Robert Downey Jr. Oh my God. "Don't blow smoke in my face." And there's Robert Downey Jr. Not Robert. Was it Robert? I'm thinking of Iron Man. No, it was Morton Downey.
Yeah, Morton Downey.
Morton Downey Jr. was this obnoxious talk show host, and he was known for a cigarette, and he would just do this to people. He'd get the cigarette, and he'd blow smoke, and he don't blow smoke in my face. And then he would get the fire extinguisher and just let him have it. And he just out in the cigarette, just let him have it. And before that, he pantsed Brother Love, which we all know who Brother Love is now. But he pantsed him, and it was just, oh my God, man, Roddy was awesome, gone way too soon. And when I saw his biography about how he did comedy and things like that, I'm like, that's absolutely perfect. That's absolutely perfect for him to do that. He was, to me, and I've said this, we've done shows about our Mount, our Mount Rushmore of wrestlers. He's right up there for me. As much as I loved Undertaker, and I loved him for different reasons, because of the horror film stuff in me and because of all that. But I absolutely loved Rowdy Piper. So yeah, man, just that era was just absolutely insane. And I know I'm lagging, apologize for that, but that era was just fantastic. And probably it's going to be hard for anyone for anyone really today to outdo that, because it was just so good. And that's really what kind of led me to continue to watch, because again, it was a thing where I just couldn't miss it. And so week after week after week after week, and it just grew. My love for the sport just grew. And Kane came along, and I remember buying an action figure of Kane because it was advertised as saying you can take his mask off and see his face. And I'm like, oh boy, did I get suckered in, man. I got suckered in. I bought that action figure. I'm like, oh my God, you never saw Kane's face. What is he going to? And then you take it off, and he's just this dude with a growl on his face. Like just this nobody with a and just like growling at you. And I'm like, wow, paid like $25 for this. For what? But
expert marketing by WWE.
Yeah, it really was fantastic marketing. Yes. But oh my gosh, was so good. And just, man, it was so much fun. And I think to tie it into where we are now, and we say this on our show, this is the kind of stuff that you enjoyed so much because there was no social media. There were no spoilers. There were no people putting everything down. You just got to sit back, watch a TV screen, and kind of just pick out your favorites. Just really, really like what you like because it entertained you.
Yeah.
And it was just such a different time, and it was such a joy. That's kind of why we're here. We're just trying to share this stuff with you because, this is who we are. And I'm sure a lot of you out there are similar to how we are. And I think sometimes you just have to step back and look at the past and just realize your love for something came from somewhere. So, when you get this and you start to see these things and this gets overwhelming and you think to yourself that, why do I bother? Sometimes just take a step back and just realize that this came from somewhere and I enjoy this because of this. Yeah. So, Jeff, any final thoughts? And I know you wanted to give like a little Q&A, and we're getting probably close to that point, but what would you say, like, just to kind of put like a little bow on this whole thing?
Yeah. So I started this earlier, and I'm going to try my best not to get emotional. Fair warning though. I alluded to this earlier, but wrestling saved my life on 3 different occasions. And I mentioned one. The other times were for me, honestly, when I was a kid, when my mom introduced me to wrestling, because I wanted to have a connection with someone with something that I enjoyed. And there was a while where I was like, man, why can't my dad be into wrestling so we can have this for me and him? But I'm just really thankful that my mom enjoyed it. And, they ended up getting divorced and all of that, and it was tough. It was tough on the family. Divorce always is. Um, but it was just it was one of those things where as a kid you don't understand relationship dynamics. You don't understand certain things as a kid, nor should you. Um, but yeah, it saved me then because I was even as a kid, I was in a dark place with how I was feeling about why my dad couldn't share that with me. And then the last time, and not to get too sentimental here, but um, was when we started this channel. Um, I had not watched wrestling in a while, um, and ended up back in South Carolina following my own divorce. Um, and was just in a really dark place, really, really dark place. And I happened upon that stream that you referred to earlier, and we started chatting, and um, honestly, Joe, we talked for the first time on the podcast that I had then, and I started that podcast as a kind of a cathartic way to get out some of the things that I was feeling, but I also wanted to have fun and talk about other things that I enjoyed. Not just all about talking about the bad, but trying to bring in some of the good things. And, um, just being able to meet some of the people that I've met and connect with you and build a friendship, um, it's meant the world to me, and it pulled me up from a very dark place. So, I'm appreciative. I know, we appreciate all the support. Um, please know that we love you guys. We love you guys. And it becomes like family. And whenever you're down, whenever you're going through something, especially like a divorce, you lose sense of yourself. Um, so I was able to kind of find myself again. I'm thankful for being able to start this. The last thing that I'll say is enjoy what you enjoy, and don't let people's negativity and drama and need to be seen cause you to fall out of love with something that you love. Um, Many of you know I'm notorious for taking my social media breaks, um, because I have to get away from the negativity. I have to get away from the drama. Social media is not all bad because it allows us to connect people with people across the world that otherwise we wouldn't be able to connect with. But it's also a double-edged sword because honestly, you get people who feel like they can hide behind keyboards and just spout off whatever. Um, Realize who those people are. Um, don't let them rain on your parade or cause you to dislike something that you really enjoy. So, um, and then I'll say this too, because the anniversary of her passing just went by. But when I started when I started with you, Joe, I was living with my aunt in South Carolina, and
Yep.
there were even a couple times where I had to get very creative with editing because she would come in and ask me a question while we were recording. Um, so, um, but she passed away a couple years ago, my aunt Margaret, and I will say that had it not been for her, um, and a lot of you, um, man, I, I I don't know where I would be. Um, so thank you all for the support. Um, Thank you for being encouraging. There are some of you who probably still listen that have not been so nice. Um, and I want to say thank you too, because you've helped me develop some tough, thick skin. Um, you've helped me realize that maybe we're on to something right. Um, because a lot of times that's when the haters come out is when you're doing something good. So thank you as well. But yeah, that's it. I'm gonna try not to get emotional, but it's been a fun ride and looking forward to it continuing.
Absolutely. And I will echo all of Jeff's sentiments. I've told him time and time again, I would not be doing this without him, period. End of story. This is a team. It always will be. We have family members that join us as well. Tazzie's in the chat, of course. Jody, Jesse does the jokes on our shows. We've met a lot of amazing people who we've had on this show, and I will be forever grateful for being able to live out a dream, to Jeff and to all of you for coming out and watching this old man rant sometimes. So what I'll say to you all is this, and we'll have a little Q&A if you guys want to just ask us some questions. But before we do that, I will say this. You be you. You be you. It's 3 easy words. But don't let anyone tell you that you are wrong. Don't let anyone tell you you can't. Don't let anyone bring you down. If there is something you like it. I was always different from that respect. I grew up in a time where if you were wearing a t-shirt that had a band that was not as popular with other people, you could get picked on. You could get beat up for doing stuff like that. But you know what? I didn't care. I was me, and I was who I am. And it's made me who I am as an adult today, because of who I am. If you could see where I'm sitting right now, I have I have Friday the 13th figures. I have a Bray Wyatt shelf. I have Darth Vader. I have Star Wars stuff. I have got an Infinity Gauntlet sitting on the bottom of a cabinet. I have Negan's baseball bat from Walking Dead. This is who I am. And the people who love you and who are close to you will want you to be who you are. So don't let these people that are the morons out there on Twitter, on social media, or whatever, don't let them tell you what to like and what not to like. You be you. Three simple words.
Yep.
Because that is how you will enjoy your life. And I hope that you all will just take that and run with it in whatever it is that you want to do going forward. So, all right. We will leave it open for a little bit of questions. So some Q&A. Again, our show wouldn't be our show without you. So for those of you that are out there, if you want to ask us any questions or anything like that in the next 5 or 10 minutes or so, we'll do our best to try to answer them. But otherwise, yeah, we had fun with this. It was great to do. We got a chance to kind of, spill our guts a little bit and tell you some things maybe you didn't know about us. So maybe you will now, you'll know us a little better moving forward, and kind of where we get from, where we came from to where we are now. I have the Hellraiser puzzle box and the Phantasm. That's awesome. I've seen the Phantasm Spear with the collection, the DVD collection. That's awesome. I've seen that where I work. I remember the high school days. You're wearing a striper shirt. Ew. I know. I used to get made fun of all the time because I would wear Kiss jackets. And at that time, most of the people who were on my school bus were all big Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, like the 70s bands. And I liked those then too. I just didn't know who they were back then because I was too young. But yeah, I had a heck of a time, because as soon as I heard the first album that I ever heard from Kiss, I was hooked. And but yeah, I went through that. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. Alicia says, "Love you guys. We love you too." And John
See
G.
the private chat.
I did not. Let me see. Oh yeah, we could do that. Oh no, I think she. Yeah, we did see Jesse. Jesse is here. What did Jesse say? I missed her comment.
Her son. She said she was celebrating her son's first birthday.
Oh wow, that's awesome, man! Does time go quick?
Time flies, man.
Holy cow, man! I just remember you having the baby, like it was yesterday. Wow, that's insane. Yeah, Jesse. If you want, yeah, sure, you can do some quick stuff. I think that's what she asked, right? Did she want to do some quick jokes? Yeah, sure, why not? Let's see. I've got a question. With Natalia Markova not currently signed with NWA, which promotion would you which promotion would you like I think you mean would you like to see her sign AEW, WWE, ROH, or Impact? I believe she'd be great in WWE. I mean, I'm never going to say no to any woman, female, really good female wrestler signing on with Impact, because I just think that their knockouts division is just leaps and bounds, I think, above a lot of others. So would she fit in there? Sure. So, I mean, I'm always probably going to be a little bit partial to Impact. Jeff, what do you think? What would you answer? How would you answer that one?
Yeah, you stole my answer because I was going to say Impact. I think she'd be great wherever she goes, but I think she would fit really, really well in Impact. And yes, I'm a homer, so I don't. It's fine.
We both are. I mean, that's
I've
just
accepted. I've accepted being called that at this point.
Bonus Baby says Pink Floyd went. Hey, listen, I'm a big Pink Floyd fan. I have so many of their albums. Once I got into that, when I was about 16 or 17, Dark Side of the Moon, The Wall, Momentary Lapse of Reason, probably my favorite album by them. I'm a big fan. Just wasn't when they were, but what are you going to do? They were older than me. So, question: if you could change one big thing about wrestling in this day and age, what would you change? I think this is, I don't know, this one might be pretty easy for me. Social freaking media is the one thing I would change. Get rid of the damn dirt sheets. If I was able to snap my finger like Thanos did with the gauntlet, I would make all of the dirt sheets go away like that. It ruins wrestling. Period. They would all be gone. All of them would be snapped out of existence. It ruins everything. The spoilers, the stuff they put out that's not accurate, that gets everybody nervous about absolutely nothing. I would get rid of it. I call that, from back in my day, trash journalism. And I call it the same thing today. It is absolute trash journalism. It is them just trying to get clicks, clout, and all of that stuff for money for their own channel. 9 times out of 10, that's what it is. There are a few that are accurate. There are a few. But they are few and far between. But that is what I would change. It ruins everything. It's like having spoilers for movies handed out to you before you go see the film. That is one thing I would change about wrestling. Jeff, go ahead. You could answer that too.
Oh man, where do I even start? Here's the thing that I would change, and it's not. It is because of social media, but I want to change people's mindsets. And what I mean by that is this: we have so many dynamic bookers on social media that you would think a lot of these people would have jobs or have experience as a booker in wrestling, but they don't. It would be to change some of these people who think that they know everything about wrestling, and they don't. I harken back to this because I've said this too. Um, I've watched The Good Doctor ever since it's been on. I don't go to work and pretend to be able to do a procedure on a patient. Um, because I don't have the experience doing that. I wasn't trained. Um, I get what you want as a fan, and that's where a lot of it comes from. But what you want as a fan and what makes sense from a company wide standpoint are two totally different things, and they're not going to always align. And getting pissed off because you don't get your way is not really the company. It's not really the company's problem. That's more of a you problem. So it's not Burger King. Can't have everything your way. Um, so your booking ideas, while it may sound like a good theory, it's not going to be necessarily what the company does. And then bashing a company because they didn't do it your way
Yep.
just makes you look like something I'm not going to say.
Yep.
Yeah.
That goes for movies and stuff too. Like everybody
Oh
just
gosh,
wants to
yes.
do stuff like better than other people do.
Yeah.
Even though the people that do it are
Are
professionals
professionals. And
and they've been doing it all their lives, but yet everybody wants to book. Yeah, so that this doesn't happen in wrestling. It happens in almost every form of entertainment
mhm.
now. James Grant says, "Do we think the Usos will turn on Roman?" I have a little bit of a swerve with that.
I do too.
I wonder if we're thinking the same thing.
Yep, we are probably.
Solo Sikoa.
Yep.
Solo is going to be the one to turn.
Solo's going to beat him.
And it's funny, somebody that knows that we do this podcast came out and asked me in my work and said, "Do you think that Solo could possibly be turning because of his ties to The Rock?"
Mm.
And I'm like, wait a minute. I think Jeff mentioned that a good while ago on our show.
Mm.
And I'm like, yeah, I think it's a double swerve in a way. I think
Yeah.
everybody's going to expect that the Usos will turn, but I think it's going to be the silent, but that the guy that is the quiet guy, I think is going to end up being the one that's going to turn. Now, remember, you saw a little bit of it on SmackDown, that little bump, the
Mhm.
shoulder of Roman, and he kind of just glared at him as he walked out. So I don't think it's that simple. But I think, see, Jeff and I are on the same page. I think
Yeah.
it's going to be Solo Sikoa who.
Yeah, I think with Solo, I mean, it would be great if they went with Jay, but I think that's too predictable.
Yeah.
I think the thing with Solo, they've been planting so many different seeds with Solo.
Yes.
And if we really think about it, the dynamics of the group didn't change until he started
Yep.
with the bloodline.
Yep.
Then things started getting really, really interesting.
Yep.
The other thing that I'll say about that too is that Roman sees Solo as a threat because notice how he talks to Jay and Jimmy, but he doesn't do Solo that way.
Right.
There's some fear there. There may be a realization from Roman that maybe Solo is up next. So maybe I need to protect my spot kind of deal. And maybe he's gunning after me. But at any rate, I think Solo is going to be the one to turn on him. And wouldn't it be interesting? We've said this on this channel. Wouldn't it be very, very interesting if Solo was somehow sent in to infiltrate? But here's the other thing. What if Solo and Paul Heyman are in cahoots?
Oh boy.
Because, Paul Heyman has always looked for the next big thing.
Yeah, he has.
So Solo could be the next big thing. Just gonna throw that out there.
I dig it. Yep, I like it. Shane Loki has a question. If you weren't doing this, what would you all be doing? So, in other words, if we weren't doing this podcast, what would we be doing? I mean, if we weren't doing a wrestling show together, I mean, if I would have started something like this on my own, like I said, I started doing that 80s show that kind of went by the wayside. I think probably for me, if we were doing separate stuff and just doing podcasts, I would probably be doing something on some type of game that I might be playing or something like that. I would probably try maybe on Twitch or something. I play a card game called Marvel Snap that I'm absolutely addicted to. So just it's a mobile game that they came out with a little bit ago with Marvel characters and cards. I probably might maybe do something like that, or might be doing something like that. But yeah, you know, I actually even looked into doing like online DJing, like music DJing, which I thought might have been interesting. I remember, Jeff, who was it that we interviewed on our show? Oh my God, remember the DJ? I can't remember his name. Derek.
Yeah.
Derek, remember Derek?
Yeah.
He did something similar to that. He was working for like an online radio station, and he was doing like online DJing. So maybe something like that, because I would love to do that again. So that's maybe what I would be doing personally. Jeff, you could obviously answer that too.
To be honest with you, I mean, Joe and I do have other projects that we do outside of the Insiders. Honestly, like I do a horror movie podcast as well. So probably more of the horror stuff. Because there's a lot of it and a lot of good stuff out there. So
yeah, there is.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is. There's a lot of horror films that are coming out now. It's making a huge comeback. Derek, I know the score. I know they're getting destroyed. One of my friends has been messaging me and stuff like that. I get it. They listen. I'm not shocked. I think this is the end of the Celtics team as it's currently stands. I think you will see a breakup of the Jays. I think that Jaylen Brown won't be a Celtic next season. So you heard that here first. But I think that this is going to be a breakup of that team. Very, very big letdown. So it is what it is. Sports is what it is. I don't get too upset about it anymore because, again, it's something I absolutely have no control over. I was a bigger sports fan when I was a young man, but when you get to realize that so many factors factor into sports now, and I'll be honest, and just a little quick 2-minute rant, I don't see the fire in these players that I used to see in basketball. Now, I'm not necessarily talking football, but I grew up watching Larry Bird. I grew up watching Kevin McHale. I grew up watching those Celtics. I don't see the fire from these players like they had. They would never, like Larry Bird would never not want to play in a basketball game because he needed load management. It's just is a completely different era. This social media era of basketball players is just very, very different from what I watched growing up. And so, like I said, it is what it is. I don't get too up or down about sports anymore because it's very, very different now. Very, very different now to watch sports. This is why, listen, I never was a big fan of Tom Brady, right? I never was. But I'll tell you this. The reason why Tom Brady won Super Bowls is because Tom Brady was able to command respect from these young guys. These young guys that would come on his teams, that would play with him, he got them in the right frame of mind to say, listen, we're winning a damn championship. That's what we're here to do. And I think some of these players, and there are some on the Celtics, I won't even say names, but there are some on the Celtics that I think are just not, they're not focused on winning a championship. I think it's like, yeah, if we win it, cool. If we don't, that's cool too. I have my sneaker contracts. I have my other businesses. I have this, I have that. If we don't win, and that's kind of how I think it is. So that's why I just don't get that up or down about sports anymore, really.
Yeah.
Let's see. We got a couple more. I think Mark has a question. When WWE bought WCW and then ECW folded, that, in my opinion, ended the territory days. However, when Impact came along, and especially when AEW started, do you think those two companies are trying to revive the territory days? because that's what it feels like to me. I don't know that they're reviving territories in so much as there are just lots of other choices of wrestling out there. I guess maybe if you want to look at it from that standpoint, yeah, it's okay. It's there's a lot of options and a lot of opportunities. Mostly though, I think right now you have the big two, maybe if you want to say the big three, if you include Impact in there with WWE and AEW. But listen, I'm to the effect that I'm sure Jeff would probably agree with this too. Any competition is good. Yeah.
Yep.
We went through a series of where it was just WWE, and let me tell you, wasn't so hot. So any competition is good. It makes for better wrestling in all of it. So Jeff, you can go right ahead and answer Mark's question.
Yeah, I don't think they're trying to bring back territory days. I think for AEW Impact, and I'm going to throw out another one because I'm going to give another cheap plug here in a second. But I think for some of these other companies, it's more about creating opportunity where before you had ECW, you had WCW, you had WWF at the time. So there were options out there for wrestlers. A lot of these independent wrestlers deserve to be on bigger stages. And when the pipeline was directly to WWE and not very many places to go, you don't get the variety and talent that you do now. And that's the thing. I mean, now you're getting to see different types of wrestlers. You're getting to see different formats of shows. Because Joe brought this up when it comes to sport, and I'll say the same thing for wrestling. WWE, and if you're a WWE fan and that's all you watch, that's fine. But WWE is no longer the end all be all in terms of where people want to go in wrestling. It's still the case for some, but not everyone. A lot of people just need the opportunity to be seen on television. Um, I'm going to throw this out there. So I just wrote an article, by the way, for WrestleSphere. Shout out to Dom, who runs WrestleSphere. I wrote an article on CZW, and got a chance to speak with their owner, Dave Markland, who was so nice. Said a lot of great things about CZW and what they have coming up on the horizon. So check that article out. I put it in the chat a little bit earlier, that link. So yeah, check that out. But yeah, I'm excited to see what they do, and I'm gonna do this. If you haven't seen CZW's Best of the Best tournament from last night, and you're going to watch it and you don't want it to be spoiled, mute me for like the next 10, 15 seconds. I'll give you a thumbs up when I'm done. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That was your spoiler alert. So now hopefully you've muted by now. So Rich Swann actually won the tournament last night. And this year the tournament was for the CZW World Heavyweight Championship. Hasn't been for that in years past, but the championship was vacated, so he won the championship last night. So it's really interesting to see what they're doing, and I'll say this: I'm going to pay a lot of close attention to CZW going forward because they've also partnered with Premier Streaming Network. Freddie Prince Jr. is one of the owners now.
Okay.
The president of Premier Streaming Network worked for WCW, not WCW, WWE, worked for UFC, worked for Fight TV. So he's very, very knowledgeable when it comes to streaming platforms and how to make that work. So, and CZW is going to be on there going forward. So, yeah, check it out if you get a chance.
There you go. More wrestling that James Chadwick won't have time to watch. Craig wants to know if Abby's is tomorrow. Well, Abby is overseas.
It will be on tomorrow.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Yep.
So coming live from England, perhaps,
Yep.
is Abby's window. So normal time, 6?
Yeah, 6.
Okay. Yep. So there you go. That answers your question. 6:00 p.m. tomorrow, Eastern Standard Time is Abby's window, like normal. We have a pretty big week ahead of us, too. We've got Impact on Thursday is a go-home show for the pay-per-view, which is Under Siege, which is, I believe, that is Friday. Am I right? I think it's Friday. Yes, that is Friday the 26th. So we've got Impact. We've got the go-home show on Thursday. And then we've got Under Siege on Friday. So a big weekend for Impact Wrestling coming up. Make sure you join us for both of those nights. 7:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursday, 7:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Friday. Make sure you join us for both of those. And then what else do we got? Saturday, this coming weekend, I think, Jeff, you have your kids, right? This is the weekend. Okay. So what I will do is I've gotten behind on my ramblings, my weekly ramblings from an old man. I'll get back to that, and I will get a video out this week sometime. Maybe what I'll do is maybe I'll try to coincide it after the Under Siege on Friday, and maybe I'll coincide it with that, and maybe I'll try to get it out for Sunday, and then this way we'll have something out on Sunday, so you can check out my ramblings of an old man video on Sunday, and maybe I'll just do a wrap up of what I saw during the course of this coming week. We've got some exciting things going on, obviously, because we have Night of Champions as well. Now, we won't be doing that. Obviously, we can't because of the time, and we have jobs, so we don't usually do those. The Saudi pay-per-views, Tazzy does them on his channel. I don't know whether or not we were talking about that. I don't know if he's still out there, but he wasn't sure if he would be able to do it or not because of his job as well, because of baseball. So I don't know if Tazzy will have it or not. Or maybe the guys that do, I know Coaster and the others do stuff on his channel, so I don't know. You just check with him and make sure if he is having it, having the watch along for that. Obviously, like I said, we don't do those because they're on too early in the day. But it's a big week, a lot of wrestling going on, and if you haven't seen it, go out and see Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Very, very good. It was phenomenal. Very, very emotional movie, but really, really cool. It's good. It's sad to see them go, and then they're not going to make any more. But it was really, really fun movie. Other than that, guys, I think then we are about done. We stayed a little longer than we had thought. I hope you all enjoyed it. We enjoyed talking to you about this and about this stuff. Hope maybe you learned a couple things, and I hope maybe you could see a little bit more of why we are who we are and why we do what we do, and why we like the sport of wrestling and why we enjoy talking about it. I hope you learned a little bit about us, and I hope you enjoyed tonight. I know it was a little different, but we had fun doing it, and we'll have to do more of these things somewhere down the road. So no, I have a game day. Yeah, okay. So there you go. So Tazzy won't be so Clash of Champions, you're on your own. Make sure you watch it. It looks like it's going to be a good show. A lot of things going on there. AJ and Seth, of course, and then the stuff with Roman and Solo and Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, Cody and Brock again. So a lot of good stuff going on there. So make sure you check that out. So it's going to be a big week in wrestling. So hope you get out there. Hope you enjoy it. And as all, like I said, guys, as I said to you before, you be you. You be you. Don't let anybody tell you what to do or what not to do or what to like or what not to like. It's you. And that's really all it is. It's what it means to you. All right, guys, that is it for us. It was great to be back. Great to see you all again.
Jesse says she's got a few jokes. Jesse, can you do like maybe 5?
Yeah, keep it down as much as you can, Jesse, because Jeff has to. Jeff's got an early morning for work tomorrow, so I didn't want to really keep.
Unfortunately.
We were literally going to try to get off of here at 10. We kind of went overtime, so if you could just buzz through them quick, like Jeff said, like 4 or 5, that would be cool.
Yeah, I've got to be. I've got to be at a thing early in the morning.
Yeah, Jeff's got a lot of
And
work that he's doing
oh
at the
gosh,
job. So,
oh
yep.
yeah, I won't get into that. But
Yeah, gotta love it. Work is work, right? Ugh.
yeah,
For the
yeah,
good or for the bad.
yeah. Just honestly though, thankful that I have a job. Um,
Very
you know,
true.
even though sometimes it like yesterday. Yesterday was a long day. And yes, I know yesterday was Saturday, folks.
Yeah. Chris says, see ya. Take care. Work says RK Shuttlesworth. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It sucks that Battleground and AEW Double or Nothing is on at the exact same time.
Uh
I
Joe,
hope
Brandon Wayne Lewis brought this up, but did you see the trailer for the new Mortal Kombat game?
I did.
Oh my goodness.
Looks amazing, doesn't it? The
It looks
graphics in that
amazing.
are
The graphics are
insane.
crazy.
Yeah, dude. There are so many. Like I said, I don't even know. That's the one thing. Like I didn't really have too much going on with, but now there are so many video games coming out. Diablo 4, which I played the
Mhm.
beta, which is insane. There's so much to do. It's insane. That's coming out. Final Fantasy 16 for me is coming out. So much coming out in the way of video games in the next like 3-4 months. It's just nuts. I can't even imagine where I'm going to find the time. All right, here we go. Do you know why libraries don't have books about suicide?
That's a dark one.
They never get returned.
Sheesh. That's dark.
That was
That's how we're starting.
That was dark. Yes. James Grant playing Diablo 4. Oh, no doubt. I am. Yeah. I'll have to let you know what my gamer tag is. I'm on. I have a PlayStation 5. I'm going to play it on PlayStation 5, but that looks friggin' amazing. I do have the Star Wars game too, Derek. I got through about half of it. Yeah, really good. Really, really good for that as well. But yeah, I'm pretty excited about all these games coming out. Number 2, treat each day as your last. One day you'll be right. These are all dark jokes. Oh, very dark jokes. And so we start, says Tazzy. And so it begins. There's some new horror movies I saw advertised. So the Boogeyman, that was from a Stephen
Oh
King.
man.
That's a
Yeah,
Stephen
that
King story from like 1973 or 74. They really dug deep for that one.
it looks good too.
Yeah, it does.
Looks good.
Yeah, it does.
And as we get closer to October,
Oh boy.
Saw.
Yeah, Saw is coming. I'm also very, very leery because they are going to put out The Exorcist right before
Yes.
Halloween. Oh
Yep.
my God.
Yep.
Although I'll offset that by saying I'm getting a Crystal Lake first look right
Yep.
before Halloween as well, because there's
Yeah.
a Friday 13th in October. The man drowned. All his mates showed up at his funeral with life jackets on because it's what he would have wanted. Yeah, they're all dark tonight. There you go. They certainly are. I'm gonna have to get a PS5 for Mortal Kombat. That sucks. LOL. They're all over the place now. My Best Buy's got tons of them. You can get them everywhere now. They're expensive though. I got some jokes from a viewer on another podcast show. I can do this Thursday for Impact. Oh boy, we got another joke teller. Fast X was really good for a part 1. Halloween is Tuesday. Halloween falls on a Tuesday. Yeah, that's going to be hard for me to watch TV during that whole because there is no way in God's green earth I'm watching an Exorcist trailer. Absolutely not.
I'll be honest. I've been out on the Fast and Furious movies for a while.
Yeah.
DRO, please stop giving spoilers for movies that people haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
You're gonna take a few minutes to think about that.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
Don't be.
I actually want to see it. So
don't be dumb.
Thanks for taking away some of the surprise. So yeah, just take a few minutes. I think you'll have about 5 minutes to think about that. So
great show tonight. Now I'll finish off my night watching DVR recordings of Grey's Anatomy, Station 19, and NCIS. There you go.
There you
You. Number 4. If you run in front of a car, you'll get tired. But if you run behind the car, you'll get exhausted.
that's good.
That was a good one. Yeah, that was a good one. I don't know what my next movie's going. The Flash is out in a couple weeks. June 12th, I want to say.
Yeah.
I'm really excited for that.
And I've got to say this too. My daughter is so pumped to see The Little Mermaid.
Oh, I am. Yep. I got to tell you, though, I could go without having to ever hear Under the Sea again in my entire life. See, you got to know where that came from. I worked for Blockbuster Video for about 4 months.
Oh, man.
And it was when that came out on video. And they did nothing but play Under the Sea the entire day over and over and over. And if I hear that one more time, I might just go postal. I just don't need it. But yes, that's gonna be a big movie for Disney. Huge movie for Disney. Yeah. My daughter wants to see it too. My youngest wants to see it as well. I tried water polo, but my horse drowned.
No one is safe this evening, is what.
Horses and oh my God. The Flash is you don't even know. That's my Batman, baby. Michael Keaton. Nostalgia. Man, when he comes out and says, "You want to get nuts?" I'm like, I can't wait. Yeah, Transformers. That looks awesome. The Beast Wars thing. Yeah, I know. Indiana Jones. The new Indiana Jones looks fantastic. There's just so many. I'm glad I have the Cinemark Movie Club. I have like 8 tickets. I'm glad I do because I'm probably going to use them all. There's so much stuff coming out. There's so much stuff coming out. All right. Well, there you go. Thanks, Jesse, for getting those in. We appreciate it. We know you were doing some stuff. So, let's see. Said note. What does he say there? Said note. Jason Momoa being the villain was phenomenal. I can't wait to see it. Fast X. Yeah. The whatchamacallit? The previews look good. Yeah. All right, guys. We're gonna get out of here so we can let Jeff get some sleep. Listen, we had a blast with this, and I hope you did too. It was just a little inside peek as to what we did, why we do this, and why we enjoy wrestling. And one thing I hope it brought is I hope that even for some of you, maybe some of you were a little down on wrestling, and maybe you weren't as excited maybe about wrestling as you used to be, and maybe it just brought you back up a little bit, realizing that it entertains us for a reason, and sometimes you just have to go back and look at why that reason is, to get out of that a little bit. So, all right, guys, see you. Jeff will see you tomorrow night for Abby's Window at 6:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure you join them. Jeff, of course, and Jody. I don't know if Dom will be there, but 2 of them may be over from England. We don't know.
Yeah.
So make sure you join them tomorrow night at 6:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll see you all again on Thursday for Impact and our big Impact weekend that we have coming up with the show and Under Siege. Have a great rest of your night, folks. Please stay safe. Be kind to one another. I genuinely mean that. And if I leave you with one thing from tonight, you be you. Have a great night, guys, and we'll talk to you soon. Good night, all.